the reservation under another name. The first time I saw the name, it didn't belong to me. It was printed in blue ink at the top of a crisp reservation slip, the kind you get when you still call places instead of pressing buttons. Reservation for Alexei Bloom. The last name was mine. The first was. I held the paper steady so the letters wouldn't slide out of order and looked around our kitchen as if the room might explain itself. Nina was in the shower, singing a verse she never remembered once she stepped out. The slip had fallen from the back cover of a paperback, some French novel with more cigarette smoke than plot, that she kept in her tote and never admitted to rereading. The restaurant was a place on the river, the kind of place that makes low promises and keeps the expensive ones. The date on the receipt was last Saturday. The hour was 8. I was at my brother's place then, assembling a bed for his kid, and trying not to resent him for the way fatherhood had fixed his voice into purpose. I sat down at the table, the wood scarred where we both forgot trivets exist, and flipped the slip. On the back, a note in Nina's careful teacher script. Ask about the Casio e Pepe. If he laughs first, go home. The line felt like a riddle and a dare. My name. Another first name. A test with an answer key I didn't have. She walked in wearing a towel and steam, hair pinned up by a pencil like a librarian who'd lost her shyness. "You're early," she smiled, and then saw my face. "What?" "I found a question," I said, and handed her the slip. Her hands didn't tremble. That would have been kindness to both of us. Her eyes did the small dart to the left they do when she's assembling a sentence she wants to sound spontaneous. "You know how I put silly names in for reservations," she said. "Restaurants treat you differently if you're not an obvious couple in worn shoes." "Alexei," I said. "It sounded like it would have stories," she said. "What is this, an interrogation?" "Not yet," I said, but the word felt like a door closing on my tongue. Nina teaches literature to teenagers who believe love should be explained by metaphors and parents who think metaphors need to be explained to love. I code, quietly, for a company that sells certainty about uncertain things. ID checks, two-factor verifications, locks that make your phone hum like it just affirmed a belief. I make small truths. Nina makes big, beautiful lies tell you something honest for a second. We always thought the combination was romantic. My doorstops, her windows. I put the slip on the fridge under the whale magnet and said what felt like the bravest, pettiest thing I could manage. "Next time, use our names." She nodded, which was either agreement or a goodbye we couldn't hear yet. "We have dinner with Lena on Friday," she said. "Don't invent an Alexei for that." It would have been easier if I had found hotel keys or lipstick in a color her mouth would never wear. Instead, I had a vowel shift and a hunch. It sat in the pocket of my mind all day while my fingers wrote logic, and my colleagues told jokes about uptime as if it could protect anything that really mattered. At lunch, I walked by the river and watched a gull disassemble a sandwich someone else paid for. The sky had the flat white you get in portraits made of people who swore they weren't tired. That night, Nina fell asleep early, a hand flung over her face like she was hiding from fairness. I lay awake and listened to the refrigerator make small domestic noises that sounded like gossip. At 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed with a notification I'd set months before and forgotten. Our building's entry log. A door opened at 2:09. The code belonged to me. I was in bed. 3 minutes later, the elevator stopped on our floor and went down again without anyone pressing the lobby button. If you want to understand the anatomy of paranoia, it's mostly numbers and vivid imagination. In the morning, the voice in my head that calls itself adult told me to ask straight. I made coffee. I kept my mouth shut. Nina tied her scarf with the quick competence that makes people trust her syllabi, kissed my chin, and left the apartment smelling like the expensive oranges she buys when she's trying to reward herself for something no one gave her. Work gave me nothing. I texted my friend Sam, who is reliably unhelpful in useful ways. Me, hypothetical. If your partner made a reservation under your last name and someone else's first, what mood would that put you in? Sam, the I'm going for a run I didn't plan mood. Me, and the run goes to Sam, the restaurant, or their book club, or the nearest reasonable stranger who will watch me spiral without interrupting. Pick your poison, Bloom. I'm not a runner. I walked to the restaurant like a man performing an apology to his shoes. At noon, the place was half asleep, tables wide with daylight. A woman at the podium looked at me and then at my hesitation. "You're either early or late," she said. "I'm here about last Saturday," I said, and it sounded like a line cut from a noir that got canceled. "Reservation under Bloom. Alex." She looked at her screen, then at me, then at the screen again the way you look at a mirror when you suspect it's been lying. "Corner banquette," she said. "They ordered the Casio e Pepe." He laughed first. "Heat went up my neck, he." She shrugged. "A cheap cardigan and an expensive watch," she said. There was also a pause, people trying on a story, seeing if it fit. "I'll tip you dirty money for one more sentence," I said. She smiled. They didn't touch much. The space between them did most of the touching. Sometimes that's more dangerous. I walked to the river and sat on the cold stone wall where teenagers come to photograph proof that they were there. I looked at the slip in my pocket. I looked at the water pretending to go somewhere. I thought about teenage me with hands on Nina's waist at a party where the music tried to hide how hopeful we all were. I had wanted a life that felt like ours. I had not anticipated how often you have to choose it. At home, I opened our shared Spotify account and noticed a playlist I didn't recognize. Emergency songs. The cover was a stock photo of rain on glass. The first track was one Nina played when she graded papers with a glass of cheap red and righteous fury. The second was something new, a song that sounded like a room deciding whether to be a church or a dance floor. The account said 2 listeners were on now, us, presumably, but the little green light next to Apple TV blinked accuse. The TV was off. I wrote down a list like a coward doing bravery with a pencil. Who is he? How did it start? Does it matter more than us? What part of me made space for this? What part of her wanted it? I crossed out the questions that would only make me cruel. I kept the ones that could produce a life I wasn't ashamed to inhabit. At 4 p.m., my phone lit with a text from an unknown number. "If you want to see without guessing, come to the conservatory at 6. North Wing. Wear indifference." I told myself I wouldn't go. I went. The conservatory is a glass cathedral that makes plants feel like they have congregations. The north wing is fewer tourists and more humidity. I stood among ferns and heard voices before I saw them. The man had the careful, easy tone of someone who has often been forgiven for rehearsing. The woman was not Nina. The woman looked like a person you'd tell a secret to if secrets could buy coffee. She saw me first. "Good," she said. "You came, I'm Mara." "You texted me." "People in trouble deserve signposts," she said. "I'm not your signpost. I'm the person who points at the sign and says, 'Read.'" "Do you know Nina?" "I know the man she is almost making a mistake with," Mara said. She tipped her head toward the other end of the path. Julian stood with his hands in his coat pockets, looking at a large leaf like it had made him a promise. I felt something ugly and familiar move under my ribs. "She's not here," Mara said. "I told him to meet me to return a book and told you to meet me to return a question. I lied to both of you. You can be angry later." "Why are you?" Because once I was the person inside the room who wished someone had knocked, she said. Leverage is useful, but truth is more portable. She handed me a printout, a screenshot of a calendar invite. Wine and Works in Progress, set by Julian, sent to a set of people who all looked like someone you'd see in a good apartment. Nina's name was there. So was a note. Ask about the Casio e Pepe. Mara watched me read. He likes rehearsals. The near miss, the almost. He thinks the second pause is morality. If your partner is tired of being the one who tends the real life, the almost is an intoxicant. I told him to stop curating women. He said his intent is pure. That's not the same as harmless. What do you want me to do? I asked. Choose your door, she said. Either interrupt in ways where you both can still kiss each other later, or let her do the math and find you already holding the answer. How do I interrupt with a kissable aftermath? Bring her home, she said simply. Not like a rescue, like a decision. Then make the room at home less boring than the room where she's being treated like new. I left with a printout, a name in my throat, and the feeling I'd been cast in a play without a rehearsal. On the walk back, the sky turned the color of steel scraped clean. Outside our building, I stopped. In the night lobby light, I could see our reflection in the glass elevator. We look good together because we mean it. That had always been true even when we were making idiot choices. She came in carrying a bottle of wine and a gilt she was trying to give a prettier name. I said nothing at the door. I took the wine to the kitchen, opened it, poured it, and slid a glass to her like we were equals in this mistake. I met a stranger who told me a story with your shape in it, I said. You can tell me a better one. She put the glass down without drinking. I wanted to see if desire would make me less tired, she said, staring at a point just beyond my shoulder where she stares when she grades the sentence that could have been good. I wanted to be looked at like I had an aura, not a calendar. I wanted a promise without obligations. Then I made a reservation under a name that wasn't mine so I could feel clean doing something dirty. I am not clean. Do you love him? I asked the old liturgy. No, she said, relief and sadness sharing the bill. I loved how I looked in a room with him. That's not love, that's lighting. Do you still love me? Yes, she said, like a verdict she couldn't wait to deliver. And I hate that I made you hold a question alone. We stood there, two people with a bottle and a kingdom they hadn't governed carefully. Come to bed, I said, surprising myself with the calm in my voice. Not to fix it, to decide together if we will. In our bedroom, the dark felt less like a hiding place than a neutral witness. We undressed each other without flourish, without punishment. If you're looking for pornography, this isn't your evening. If you're looking for intimacy that knows where its limits are and presses against them with consent like a hand on a door, this is ours. Nina's skin ran warm under my palm. I felt her breath change when my mouth found the place below her ear where conviction lives. She spoke my name like it deserved to be in her mouth. We moved with attention. Eroticism is in the kindness you give the person you're choosing after you almost didn't. We asked each other questions in small sounds. We answered in smaller ones. Heat built, not like a fire you throw things at, but like a tide you decide to let in. When we fell, it wasn't erasure, it was a vote. After she lay with her cheek on my chest and said, I told him no more rooms, no more rehearsals. I'm tired of being almost terrible. Let's write different rules, I said. No secret reservations. If you want novelty, you can ask for it here. If I get boring, I won't punish you for admitting it. She laughed into my skin, that ember laugh that got me into this whole life. You are a workshop, she said, echoing a phrase we'd learned before we knew we needed it. He's a museum. I needed to be restored. I forgot restoration happens with light and solvent and patience, not applause. We built rituals after that, not purity, agreements. One song to the end before anything important so we remember art can calibrate us. One paragraph read aloud from something we love, so we remember love is made of sentences. We kept a rule about doors. If a new one appears, we look at it together first. And on Fridays, we make a reservation under our actual names. We ask about the Casio e Pepe because the line is funny now that it's honest. Months later, I saw Julian at a gallery opening, curating light around people who had good hair. He glanced at me like a man who'd agreed to lose but not badly. I nodded. He nodded back. Some wars don't need winners when everyone chooses a different field. At 2:17 a.m. my phone didn't buzz. The building slept. Nina's leg was flung over mine, a claim without performance. I thought about the slip of paper, about Mara with her signpost and stern kindness, about the woman at the podium who noticed pauses the way a surgeon notices pulse. I thought about names and the rooms they can unlock when you don't pretend they belong to someone else. We aren't pure, we are answerable. The reservation tomorrow is under Nina and Alex. It's silly how much that matters. But when the host looks down at the list and then up at us and smiles, I'll feel the click a lock makes when it recognizes its key, and I will think, we did not change the door. We changed how we walk through it.